Welcome to the Moffitt Method Podcast, where longtime strength conditioning coach Tommy Moffitt explores everything from the art of coaching, improving performance, sports nutrition, and mental training. Now, welcome your host, Coach Tommy Moffitt.
Welcome to the Moffitt Method Podcast, and I am your host, Tommy Moffitt. If you are listening for the first time, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. Our amazing guest today is Brad Solomon. Brad is the Director of Performance Dietetics at the University of Wyoming and came highly recommended by Eric Donovan to have on here as a guest. Brad is entering his second year at Wyoming, working with the football program. He came to Laramie from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where he worked to expand the nutritional services that were offered to the football team as a grad assistant. Before becoming a registered dietitian, he worked as a nutrition assistant with the Las Vegas Raiders during their inaugural season in Las Vegas. This provided pivotal experience in developing a food service system and integrating nutrition into performance at the professional level. During his undergraduate work at UNLV, he served as the university's first fueling station manager for multiple years before moving on to his master's. He plans to complete the program by presenting a comprehensive review of current literature on practical nutritional strategies when developing body comp and NCAA Division-1 football athletes. Welcome to the podcast, Brad. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Well, thank you very much, Tommy. I'm excited to be here. It's a blessing to be here.
Good. I'm glad you're on here. So the podcast, most of the people that I've worked with in my career have all been football strength coaches. And it's my desire not to just be a football strength and conditioning podcast, but, have different guests, whether it be nutrition or sports science and women and people, that work in dietetics, et cetera. So I'm excited about having you on here, and I'm looking forward to sharing some great information with you. I want to get right to the podcast because these things tend to be kind of long. So we're going to get right to the questions. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So to start, can you tell us how you became interested in nutrition and what was your path to becoming a collegiate sports dietitian?
Yeah. So a lot of self-reflection is where nutrition came from in my life. I was blessed enough to play football throughout my life, went up into the college level, played at a Division-2 school, Colorado Mesa. And when you meet me in person, I'm not really built to play offensive line. I'm not really built to carry 280, 290, 300 pounds. And I didn't wear it well. So I tried to play a couple different positions, ended up stopping playing and realizing, man, I want to get this weight off my body. And I just dove into nutrition head first. I worked at a GNC. I lived at the 24-hour fitness in the neighborhood. And I just kind of dialed in and educated myself a little bit on what I knew. And then I started my undergrad there at UNLV, not even knowing that dietetics is a hospital related thing. It's a medical profession. I got in because I was like, man, I'm gonna help football athletes feel better about themselves, feel better every day going into performance, into practice, and had my eyes widened open a little bit when I was in that second semester in medical nutrition therapies. But I had a lot of fun with it. I learned a lot, and that's where it really stemmed from. I kind of always knew I was gonna fight like heck to be a part of a football program.
Now, what was the process of getting the job with the Raiders? How did that happen?
Yeah, so they moved over to Las Vegas right when I was finishing my undergrad. And Nicole Kiley, who was the first dietitian at UNLV that I worked underneath, she's now the director at Iowa State. I kind of reached out over to the Raiders, to Ricky Ng, who's the dietitian with the Raiders still there. And he saw I was in town and he was looking for a nutrition assistant, and I applied, and was just lucky enough to get that position over there. At that level, I think it's becoming more and more common for professional dietitians to have assistants working underneath them. So that's what that kind of was, like an hourly job, but I was there, 60 to 70 hours a week still working right alongside them, and great experience.
Well, I can imagine. Now, while you were there, was there a player, a tight end named Foster Morrow?
Yeah, he was. I think it was his second year, and he's still there.
Yeah, he is. Great person. Yeah. So Foster lived in Baton Rouge for a while after Hurricane Katrina. He's originally from New Orleans and then went to school. He was between my oldest and middle son. So they went to grade school together, and then he moved back to New Orleans for high school, and then he ended up, signing at LSU and coming to play here. But a great person, unique individual, really bright, and always took really good care of himself while he was here. So I'm sure Foster bugged you a bunch about nutrition.
Yeah, he was fantastic. He was one of those guys that every day after practice, you look for those guys in nutrition that come sit at the nutrition bar, come sit at the station and just want to hang out. He was one of those guys.
Yeah. So now inquiring minds want to know what it was like living in Las Vegas and going to school at UNLV as a young college student.
Oh man. UNLV is a commuter campus, so it's a little different than a lot of maybe LSU. I've never been down there, but it's a commuter campus. So it involves 45-minute drives down into the middle of the city, there and back. When you get to campus, I can't speak highly enough of, one, the academic side, the teachers I had, the professors I have, who taught me kind of the academics, but then the people that you find in the athletic department that have been there for 20, 30 years. There's fantastic stories everywhere. Yeah. There's a little bit of history in every corner, although, it's one of those schools where there is a lot of turnover. There is a lot of coaching turnovers. The football program hasn't had a lot of success, but then you come to find out that the equipment manager has been there for 20, 30 years, and she's got these fantastic stories. It was good to be a part of something everybody felt like they were building.
Any stories about when UNLV played Tennessee Tech and I came to town? Anybody mention me?
I can't say I was hear those just yet.
Yeah. So, we talked about this the other day when I was in college at Tennessee Tech. We played UNLV in Las Vegas. We stayed at the Tropicana. Now, I think the Tropicana is no longer there, but, I was a kid from Middle Tennessee, and I think it was maybe the first time that I ever flew on a plane. No, the second time. The first time I flew on a plane is when we played K-State the year before, but we fly out to Las Vegas, Nevada, and first of all, our coach told us all winter and all summer during training how hot it was going to be. So we thought that we were all going to die when we got there. And we ended up playing a night game, and it was about 75 degrees with a nice breeze, and it was beautiful. Probably wasn't as hot there as it was back in Cookeville. But we played against Randall Cunningham, former All-Pro, second-round draft pick, and the infamous Icky Woods, from the Icky Shuffle. So needless to say, we got the brakes beat off of us, and then we got back on the plane. Now, they did let us stay because of the way the flights, I guess we flew commercial. I'm sure we didn't have a chartered flight, but they let us go out until I think our curfew was like 1 or 2 in the morning. And then we had to be on the plane at 6 a.m. to fly back to Tennessee. But so that's my one and only time to Las Vegas. So we had a good time though.
I actually, I don't mean to throw this on you, but I grew up playing against Cunningham's son.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah, we were in the same little league together. He was 1 year below me. And I remember Cunningham he would coach the teams, the Little League team, his team growing up. His kid was always the quarterback.
Yeah.
And then he ended up playing at Bishop Gorman, which is like kind of the legendary high school here. And I played at the public school, like, down the street.
Yeah.
And I remember we played them in playoffs, and I come around the edge, rushing the edge. And this kid, he went on to play or compete in Olympic track.
Oh, wow.
So he's fast. I think he broke some records in high jump and stuff like that. Explosive athlete. And that was maybe one of my first times getting that taste of coming around the edge and then someone just disappears from you. It's like, oh, that's why I don't have a D1 offer.
Yeah. Well, that's the same way it was for me when we played against him. So I had the same struggle against his dad that you had against his son. So don't feel bad about it. Oh, man. So, all right. So, what is a dietitian's role for those, our program is for primarily for high school coaches. And so what is a dietitian's role in the collegiate sports setting? And what are some of the unique challenges that you face as a sports dietitian?
I think the unique challenge is this is still such a brand new discipline, right? Athletic trainers were fighting for position with football teams, let's say 50 years ago, back when Gatorade came out,
Yeah.
And 20, 30 years strength ago is really when like every program started to feel the need for a really strong strength program. Right. And so those are very well established disciplines. And from what I understand, or what I see is nutrition. And then we can kind of throw mental health into that too. We're so new on the block. We're the new kids on the block. And so every program has been, on the D1 level, has been finding ways to feed the kids, use some resources to build a dining hall, cater in food. So they've been doing something nutrition related, having a fueling station. They've had those resources for a while, and now they're seeing the need. Okay, now we need someone full time to come run these resources for us and expand potentially on those resources. And that looks so different at every school, right? At every professional team, it's so different what those resources have been laid out for those teams already. And so when you come in, the unique challenge in my mind is one, hearing the coaching staff out, hearing the strength staff out, hearing the athletic trainers out, finding where they see the holes of what the program's missing right now, feeling out the players and maybe some of the older guys on what they want to see done kind of in the immediate future, and kind of pinpointing what those hot button issues are that we want to see. Like, like, are we feeding the guys? That's kind of the biggest question when it comes to performance dietetics. Are we feeding the guys, and are the guys enjoying it enough to actually be eating it? And that's kind of where we've gone this first year. We've just taken a deep dive into quote unquote, feed them boys.
Yeah.
Get the chef team on board, get the cooks on board. They've done a fantastic job of that. Now our equipment staff and chef team, they're all like Star Wars nerds. So they're like sharing gear and sharing stuff. Like they've kind of pulled the kitchen staff into the love and the culture of what the football team has. And then, and it's kind of my job to try to bridge some of that and bring them on board and be a part of that experience, is the way I see it. Some, they're already going to have that conquered. They're already going to have a great relationship. They're already going to have the dining hall going, but they're missing a post-workout feed, or they're missing protein shakes, or they're missing supplements. It's kind of endless on the ways that you can go. But I'd say that's our role, is to find the holes of the program, because no program's perfect. And then being a part of every staff on that staff, being a part of the strength staff, being a part of the athletic training staff, into where their ideas are heard and they can be kind of executed in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. We were talking about Eric earlier, and some of the things that you're talking about, and I'm sure he's told you stories that he actually was responsible for doing when, he first started coaching at LSU. If we were going to give our players fruit, because the rule, 10 years ago, the rule was only fruits, nuts, and bagels. And so, Eric would drive to the cafeteria every day in his car on his dime, and he would go pick up, big boxes of fruit. And then the strength staff, we would sit there and with paring knives and wash the fruit and then bag it up and for consumption. And so, yeah, it really has. It's come a long, long way. And so, while you were talking about it, it's evident that you have to wear many hats. You plan the meals. You're in charge of actually, making sure that the meals are delivered. So food services, you manage the fueling stations, and I don't know how many y'all have, but they get crowded, man. And, you run out of stuff all the time. And in addition to all of that, you're collecting data on the players. And then you have the educational process, of actually sitting down with the players as groups and individuals and, teaching them what it's like to, properly manage their intake of food. So what is it like developing a complete nutritional program from the ground up for a college football team?
It's extensive. It's a project, and it's a project that kind of continues to evolve. You never kind of fully get there. Even when we were at the Raiders, they were just moving into that building in Las Vegas here. And of course they had, the perfect setup, the perfect Gatorade fueling station, all the equipment you could ask for. But, that dining hall was ran by some beautiful, creative mind individuals that really wanted to give the players the best effort on presentation and taste and everything. But you still have, although you have all those resources, you still have to fine tune constantly and fine tune it in a way that is gauged towards performance in a way that you can communicate to the athletes, like you're saying, educating the athletes about what we're putting in front of them. And then also knowing that the coaches trust you with that you're working within the best interests of the team. The education and the overall project is kind of never finished because, from high school to college to the professional level, these guys all kind of work on a 4-year contract. I like to kind of think of it in my head. In high school, you got freshman to senior. In college, guys are playing for 3 to now 6 years. And in the professional level, if they get drafted, that's typically a 4-year contract. And so while those guys are going to be there for a long time, for 4 years, you want to develop the system in a way that they'll enjoy it and they'll utilize it in a way that's adapted around them. But then the next year you have new guys coming in that might have new ideas, new recipes, new things that they saw at the college level or they had at the high school level that we can adapt to them. And so I don't think the project's ever done because you're always going to have kind of new athletes coming through the system. But you do, set up targets and goals and pinpoints and checkpoints in the system where you can rally around. For example, because our goal this year was to feed the guys better, have them come in and enjoy the food and actually eat the food in the facility. was a big issue with them coming, checking in, getting swiped off for lunch, checked off for lunch, and then kind of going down the street to the restaurant down the street. We tracked not only attendance to the meals, but then, their weights throughout the season. And we, the data that we collected this year was to compare what the weights were in 2021 before we started implementing these like kind of player-led feedbacks to the feedback surveys to the kitchen. We compared those weights in 21 to the weights in 2022 when they started to feel like they had a voice and a say in what they're being fed. And it was drastic.
Oh, wow.
I think the big drop off was like around week 11. So game 9-ish, because we had an extra bye week this year. They had lost 400 to 500 pounds by week 11 from the whole team. And this year we never crossed that like 200-pound threshold. And then
wow.
We actually we got them back down too. Like they started to lose some weight just from fatigue and monotony through the season. But then we got that weight back down, or that weight loss back down. So that's kind of the way we tracked it. And that was year one. That's the objective year one. And year two is going to be, more targeted hydration stuff and more targeted performance related stuff. And while we continue that project from year one. So if you go like that, I think if you talk to dietitians that have been in programs, I know the Nebraska dietitian's been there for 20, 30 years. That program's far from being finished. They're just building a new, facility and dining hall for the guys. That's a whole new project for them over there that they're going to be working on. Some dietitians have been around for a long time, and I think they would say it's kind of brand new every year what they're looking at.
Yeah. So, you made a really interesting point. And it's had a profound effect on me right now because, getting player buy-in, not just in nutrition, but anything for that matter, requires effort. So you had a problem. Guys weren't eating in the cafeteria, and that's not uncommon for a lot of programs. So you looked at the data, you came up with a solution, you put a plan into action, you followed through with it, and you had a positive outcome where a lot of times people will sit back and say, our players aren't eating, coaches aren't making them do this, or the administration we're wasting all this money because X number of players aren't eating a meal. And that happens everywhere. But it's really great to see that, you saw an issue. Again, you had a plan, put it into play. And then the result was players did, there was buy-in, and that's critical in every department in athletics, whether it's high school, college, or pro. When there's an issue, instead of sitting back and pointing fingers and blaming things on people, you look for a solution. And again, you put a plan into action and good things happen. So that leads me to this question that, because 10 years ago, just 10 years ago, our players were eating one meal, and it was in a cafeteria for the entire student body. Some of the food was good. I mean, if you're an average student, it's good food. But if you're trying, to train and plan and for high elite level performance, you got to put good food in the body. So the price of all these additional meals now, where you went from maybe one meal a day to student athletes eating 3 solid meals a day plus snacks, the cost of these meals has increased across the board. So what challenges or changes are you aware of institutionally there or administratively to offset the amount of money that it costs to feed your teams compared to 10 or 12 years ago?
That is a comprehensive question. Very, very top down question. You got to kind of bird's eye view that one. First and foremost, very, very lucky to have the blessing and the donations from some of our donors here at this university. The McMurray Foundation has funded a lot of what we do at our dining hall, our training table, our performance facility. So having that is a huge blessing. And then having, on the negative side, having COVID, having inflation, having the Russian war, having these real world barriers is stressful on this system. Yeah. Administration's well aware of it. We communicate those details of, what to expect from inflation percentages. We calculate out, what we expect, and we talk about very openly how long we expect this to kind of go on before we see some sort of catch up. But after those conversations are had, the money's there, and the money that we have is available, and we got to stay within budget. Yeah. It's kind of the just nature of the game. And our budget's going to be different here at Wyoming than it is at the Raiders. The Raiders, we have the budget of $112 a meal, 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. Per $112 per head. The whole building's eating of this. And at Wyoming, that is not the case. It's more like $13 to $15 a head. And we still serve a full service buffet. We still are going to have the expectations on ourselves to have 2, 3, 4 proteins at every meal, 2, 3, 4 carbohydrate options at every meal, 2 to 3, 4 vegetables at every meal, cut fruit, full fruit, stone fruit at every meal, 2 to 3 different salads at every meal, and also 40. We have the expectation of 40 tongs, spoons, ladles at every meal. And what that does is it maximizes, one, the kitchen's creativity of applying and using like toppings and sauces and things to allow the athletes to get creative with their meals. Come in for breakfast. I'm feeling raspberries, Greek yogurt, and I want some guacamole on my omelet. Well, some guys don't eat like that. Some guys want the McDonald's style hash browns. So, cheddar cheese melted on them babies and some, French toast. And, you got to kind of meet the guys where they're at, but at the bare minimum, we have to meet kind of the needs of all the guys. Right. And the needs of all the guys is calories first. Calories are king. We have to hit those calories first before we can start playing with the protein, the carbohydrates, the fats, and then the B12 and the iron and the creatine. And so our administration's fantastic. I'll go back to applauding them. Our administration's fantastic. And then our chef team is fantastic as well. And hey, there's a sale on, this cut of chicken. Let's buy 30 boxes of that and, get them in the freezer and bring them in, and so we're shoppers right now, which can be good because then we're bringing in new products and giving the guys different things on their plate. So the monotony isn't so much there. Right. And so that kind of leads me to my next question. Okay. So when working with a football team, and you alluded a little bit to it just now, how do you strategize to meet the goals of 100 impressionable and sometimes a little difficult or a little picky, and guys from so many different locations? Like, how do you plan for all that and prepare that many different foods for that many different palates? It is amazing. That is the That is why I spend the most time in our dining hall. I spend more time there than, I'm at every practice. I pop in at lifts and stuff like that. But my main focus is just being around the food, because you got to get the insight from everybody. You got to check in with everybody. Our guy from the Hawaiian Islands has to be enjoying the food just as much as our guy from Houston, Texas, just as much as our guy from Nebraska, from Scottsboro.
Yeah. Any Louisiana seafood?
Oh yeah, we do a big old Mardi Gras celebration at the end of February. This last year we did a huge jambalaya in a big stone pot. It was probably about 100 pounds of jambalaya we had stirring up in the middle of the dining hall. We had gator. We fried up a gator.
There you go. Okay.
we did it big. It was good. We had the what's the cake called? The
king cake.
King cake. Yeah. We had king cake. We had all sorts of stuff. So we celebrate that a lot, and we absolutely throw etouffees into our.
Oh wow! Okay, now we're talking etouffee.
Chef Jacob can cook an etouffee. I'll tell you what.
Good. So you have themes that you plan for, and then that is added buy-in from players from different localities. Like we had Braden Fahoko, who was from the Hawaiian Islands, and so we would have a luau occasionally, and then we would have poke bowls and fresh tuna and all different types of things for those guys. So it's good that you're throwing those theme parties to get guys in the cafeteria.
Oh, and I'm not shy at all too. We threw a luau also for our Hawaiian guys. That was after the last spring ball practice. We threw a luau, and we stuck a pig. We smoked it for 24 hours. We did the poke, like you said. We did all that stuff, and I'm bringing Shay and Fia, our Hawaiian guys. I'm bringing them back into the kitchen and going like, "Hey, man, when y'all make this back home, is this the seasonings y'all would use?"
That's good.
I'm like, squeeze these lemons for us, I gotta get them involved. And so some of the guys love that stuff, and that's huge. That's how you feed the guys, is like you said, all those adjectives: impressionable, characteristic, the guy, attitude driven, performance driven, guys that care about their football. And have, that ego in their football. They care about what they're doing, but you also want to pull them into caring about their nutrition, caring about the food, caring about the culture there. And so, same thing, like I said, same thing for the guys that eat or are used to more Cajun and soul food. We bring them into the kitchen and call their mom and FaceTime their mom and ask them, "Hey, what's the recipe here? What would you like to see on these catering meals?" We just try to involve them as much as we can.
And that's huge. And that goes a long way versus throwing food out on the, in the hot dishes, whatever you call those things, chafing dishes or whatever, and saying they don't eat the food, So you go the extra mile to make sure that you're putting something down there that the kids are going to eat, because that fuels performance. That's where your weight gain comes from. That's where your energy comes from. That's where your muscle mass comes from. So that goes a long way. All right. So does your experience, and I've asked this question a lot, especially when we're interviewing or when we were interviewing people for positions. Do you think that your experience as a player helps you to understand the demands of the sport and the sport dietitian position better than someone who didn't play football? And when it's different, I think, for a sport like football. There's no other sport like football, and it requires a different type of person to play the game, and you go through so much work for the 12 games or 13 games that you get to play. Does your experience help you communicate with the guys?
it's not to take away from anybody that didn't play the game, that loves this career, has a passion for this career. But you got to break the ice with the guys. If you're faking it at any point, the guys will know.
Yeah, that's right.
If you're ever faking it that you want to be there, or if you're tired, never ever fake it. And I think being a part of the football experience allows me to relax a little bit and not always feel like I'm trying to impress the guys or not always trying to, fit the mold. It's a little more natural, and that's just kind of the nature of it. I was blessed to be able to play the game for as long as I did. And I get to break the ice and have non-nutrition conversations with athletes,
that's right,
coaches, and staff, which I think is important. I care just as much as what your favorite, post-workout shake is, just as much as I care what your favorite football team is and who your favorite athlete is and who you look up to and what your mom does for work. Having those conversations and in the middle of summer camp, guys are dragging their butt in there at 6:30 a.m. They're sitting down dead tired, and being able to shut my mouth, not overburden them with, do you feel good? Do you feel
you know what that feels like.
It doesn't feel good, man. My head hurts. My neck hurts from that first week of wearing a helmet. I don't want to talk to you at 6:30 a.m. So.
Just give me something to eat and let me go. Yeah, that's right. And it's like you said, you know when and when not to try to break the ice.
Yeah. And I just feel it's a subtle advantage. And it's not to say that people who didn't play the game can't, know those things too, but just having awareness that I don't got to always talk about nutrition. I have a rule. I should tell you this story. I didn't always know that. Just playing the game. Just playing the game didn't give me that benefit. When I started at the Raiders, I was excited. I was excited. I had just finished my undergrad. They hired me that summer, and I get into the building. We're rolling into like rookie camp. The rookies are just coming in for a couple of days before we get into full go fall ball. And my boss on like day 2 or 3 goes out with COVID because that was COVID year. And so we were testing every day. And I remember I see our physician assistant come walk into the office. And I'm out by the fueling station. He has a quick conversation with Ricky, my boss there. And he grabs a couple of things and frantically walks out of the building. And I get a call like 10, 15 minutes later, like, hey, man.
You're the guy.
Just be yourself. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, what do you want me to do? And he was like, just be yourself, be up there, coaching the guys on the line in the dining hall, be around a fueling station, make sure stuff is stocked. And I'm like, all right. Roger that. Bring my stick. Here we go. And the next morning I'm up, exactly like I said, it's summer camp. And I started talking to one of these rookie O-linemen. He didn't grab very much protein. He grabbed he grabbed like a 3 egg. He got 3 eggs off the grill and, some fruit and some potatoes, whatever, man. Like, it's a meal, it's some calories going into them. Like, you ain't going to solve every issue right away. But I took that one right upon me to go meet him at the line and go, hey, man, we got practice in 3 or 4 hours. I think you'll be able to digest more protein than that. How do you feel about it? I'm grilling him first thing in the morning. And then the second day, he was very respectful. And he said, yeah, that sounds good. I should probably get some more protein. He does it very respectfully. And the next day he doesn't grab that extra protein that, I just coached him up on. And I go sit with him and start drawing out muscle protein synthesis waves. And like, I draw a little graph on a sticky. And I learned a valiant lesson about, sometimes, a little more subtlety.
Yeah. He was a little grumpy on day 2, huh?
Yeah. He didn't like that so much. So,
yeah. And that's called on the job training.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I learned a lot that year about, when to approach guys and how to be yourself a little bit more and be a little more relaxed and be a little more respectful to the process. Yeah. That's what that experience was like.
Yeah. A little more subtle sometimes. Mm-hmm. All right. So you'll hear players all the time, especially as a strength coach, and, they'll come to you and say, I've got to get bigger, man. Coach, or so-and-so is bigger than I am. And then you'll hear coaches say, so-and-so's got to gain 20 pounds and, he's got to gain 20 pounds in the month of June and stuff like this. So this was always a question that I've had. And how much do you consider genetics that play a role in limiting a player's ability to add mass? And as a professional dietitian, what does this conversation sound like with the player or the coach? That was something that, so the realist in me would say, sorry, son, you're tapped out. But there's a much more subtle way about going about that. And so how does that sound? How does that conversation sound when you got a guy that's just genetically, he's not, going to be able to be as big as the coach or the kid wants to be? Yeah. Have you ever experienced something like that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I hear all the time coaches going, I hear it in a very nitpicky style. Is a guy, let's say a guy's 250 pounds. You got a defensive end is 250 pounds. And they're like, oh man, if he could just get to 255, 257. And I'm like, when you sit back and you're like, yeah, 7 more pounds of muscle or 5 more pounds of muscle and 2 pounds of fat, I'm always on board for that. Right. I love to look around and go like, yeah, you got some potential to put on a little weight. Genetically, some guys don't. And it's a very interesting juggling match. Yeah. I think the younger the athlete is, the younger in the system they are, the more time that you have to take, the more patience that you should take with that athlete to help them realize and achieve their goals. Because overall, I never want to put 20 pounds of fat on a guy. Right. We've had young freshman offensive linemen come in who are, soaking wet 240. And although they need to gain that weight quickly, and we need to be intelligent about that weight gain, you still want to exercise the potential of putting on muscle over fat. Some fat will go on, and that's the nature of the game. That's the nature of playing offensive line. But the healthiest way that we can do that, and that is prioritizing protein, of course. What those conversations sound like are extremely individual. I'll go back to prioritizing the conversations that I've already had with that athlete, the icebreaker conversations. I really, really prioritize getting to know a guy before I coach the guy. So I might not say anything nutritionally relevant to a guy for their first 2, 3, 4 weeks in the program, maybe their first month, before I start to hit them over the head with some, soft education. And then we see where that happens. It's different for every guy. If a guy knows he has the potential to play in the league, I coach him a little bit harder. I coach him a little bit more direct and go, hey, man, when you're on the Jacksonville Jaguars, they ain't going to put up with this crap about, you losing 10 pounds in the first 4 weeks of the season. You
Right.
have to maintain this weight. We have to put this weight back on. And when you build that relationship, I'll be a little more strategic, and I will hand them shakes. I will put the food in their hands. I will walk over and put an extra protein bowl next to their plate that they grabbed, because it's very direct. Some of the guys aren't there yet.
Yeah.
And some of the guys still need those conversations to be had. And so those expectations can come from position coaches. The expectations can come from strength coaches. And the expectations can come from me.
Yeah.
So before I dive all the way in, I like to sit and get some views from the position coach and strength coaches on the athletes themselves, because ultimately that's their job. I don't want to start recommending this tight end gain 20 pounds if he's going to be flexing out to the slot a lot,
right.
and we're going to jeopardize his speed and something like that of that nature, right? So keeping them looped in is of utmost importance. And then it's kind of, on me to communicate those goals that are set with the athlete to say, okay, yeah, we are all on board for you to gain this 20 pounds. And then I do expect everybody to communicate in some form and fashion on those things, on those goals. The strength coaches, I'm blessed enough to have the strength coaches. They take the weights here at Wyoming. And so it's nice to have them a part of that process directly, having those conversations as soon as the weight is taken. And then what I do is I track all those guys that we have specific goals on. And then I touch base every week with them at practice, at meals, wherever that might be, to touch base and give them tips along the way. And then constantly just kind of, we have a great group of position coaches at Wyoming who are always kind of willing to just sit down and chop it up about their guys. So those conversations make it a lot easier when they're in the loop on their guys and can kind of check in with them as well in a very natural state. So I think going back to the question, what that conversation looks like is it going to be direct, like, hey, we need you to get to this weight, like immediately or quickly, or why we need to get you to this weight? Or is that conversation going to be like, hey, man, you haven't shown up to dinner all week. Is everything okay? What's going on? What can we do food-wise for you? And approach it from that side first to go like, oh, he's not enjoying the food. Let me not say gain the weight. Let's start the conversation there. And usually if they're aware of a weight gain goal, they go like, man, yeah, and I'm sorry, like I haven't been able to put that 5 pounds on yet. I've been stressed with school. My girlfriend dumped me,
Yeah. Yeah.
My parents.
Guys will drop 10 pounds when their girlfriend drops them.
Quickly. And so, that it's a very organic conversation. And I think and dietitians in general pride themselves on having that RD next to their name, because that means that we are aware of all the variables that could be going on with weight change. And we can be a little defensive about those conversations sometimes if they're not being had in an organic and complementary way to the athlete's performance and to the athlete's health first and foremost. And so there'll be times where I'll be direct with a coach and say, hey, I don't think he's ready for that. Or, hey, I think he's here when we want him to be here. And then there's other times, like I said, there's guys who should be going to the draft next year that we're all like, hey, man, like let's knuckle up a little bit. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the big boys for a minute. And, in 34 years, man, of coaching, this was always a tough group, dealing with the players and sometimes, dealing with the coaches and sports medicine staff. So, when you recruit a kid, especially in college, if you recruit a kid whose mom and dad are heavy and he's already heavy, he has a tendency to stay heavy. And then sometimes coaches will look at just how a kid is built and immediately conclude that he's got to lose a certain amount of weight. He's got to drop 20 or he's got to drop 30. And I know that non-functional mass slows you down and makes everything in athletics harder, running, jumping, throwing, everything. How does this conversation sound? And is there a way that you go about it that increases your chances of a positive outcome versus, upsetting a young man and possibly, losing him where they don't, I've had them where they won't even talk to you for a week or two, or they get on that roller coaster where they're up and down and up and down. Because that's always been a tough one for everybody, for the coach, the player, and the staff. How do you handle that?
And sometimes they're 300 pounds and they're our nose tackle, and all of a sudden they come to you going, "Hey, I want to lose 20 pounds." That's coming from their side, and it's like, I don't want you to lose 20 pounds.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let's talk about this in a body composition way. Let's just manipulate body composition. Patience again. Patience. The guys are the most in tune with their own body. Body image is a real thing when we're talking about mental health. And when we're talking about a larger individual who obviously has some excess body fat on their body, what we're talking about is somebody who's subject to looking at themselves first thing in the morning in the mirror and being unhappy before they go out into the world, before they go to practice, before they go to breakfast, before they drink water. They are unhappy with what they see sometimes. And sometimes, sometimes they have a great relationship with their body and they're well aware of what they have and where they'll be after sport. You see the guys like, what was it? Marshall Yonda from the Ravens who slimmed down like 100 pounds instantly. And some of those guys in the league that played for a long time, they carried some excess weight. And then they slim right down because they're intentional about it.
Right.
So very interesting dynamic there, right? Where some guys need to be 320 pounds to have that anchor. And I think that first and foremost, reiterate patience, get to know the guy, get to know what his favorite team is, who his favorite athletes are, what his parents look like, what his diet was growing up, where his parents would go out to eat. Would they cook in the home? Did they rely on fast food? Did they always have oatmeal cream pies in the pantry and Ritz crackers? What were some of those variables? Get to know those things. Ask him, what's his favorite dessert? Because everybody's got a favorite dessert, man. It's okay. It's okay to have that. Get to know those things first. Get to know his parents first, especially at the high school level, before you ever breach that conversation about, hey, especially if it's a environment where you can't really control the food and help him at the high school level. A lot of times you can't. And so you don't want to put somebody in a cycle of wake up in the morning, ashamed of my body, go to practice starving. Performance has a detriment to me being hungry during practice and then gorging myself in private because I am starving. And tomorrow will be a better day where I'll just kind of not eat in the morning and that'll be okay. There's a lot of variables that can come into play with these athletes who are larger, and especially at the high school level. I went through it. Like I said, I did not carry 280, 290 pounds well. I loved the game of football, but when I was up in the college level, I hated the way I looked, and I constantly wanted to go play defense or go play something else where I could lose that weight. And so having real conversations with the guys, getting to know them. And I think very quickly when they start to see that, you have the linebacker who needs to gain weight, he's on a good plan. And the star quarterback or star running back, he's on a good plan where we're really maintaining health and performance. They start to see those things and they go, shoot, man, I can do it too. I can get on a plan too. I can do something to help my body, help my health too. And they come to you and start to ask those questions, maybe in private, maybe in public. That's really on an individual basis. And then you start to devise those plans. And then after you have all that patience in the world, all that patience, whether it might be a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, you have all that patience to build that relationship before you have that conversation, before you have them come to you about that topic. Don't ruin it by going, hell yeah, I think you can lose some weight too, man. Let's get on a plan. Let's cut out carbs. Don't break it by jumping down his throat on that plan. Go, hey man, what do you think you could improve on? What are some factors that are going on in your life that might make it hard for you to be feeling yourself? It's a very, very, very common thing that, especially at the high school level, these kids grow up with parents who are working all day. They get that breakfast at school before school. They show up on the bus, get breakfast before school, which typically might be a honey bun and some cereal. Yeah. Don't eat much at lunch because school lunch is meh. And then go to practice. And then the first real meal that they eat is Taco Bell, a big bag of Taco Bell that mom stopped at on her way home from work, 8 p.m. That gets dropped on a coffee table and you get a few tacos out of it. That's common. That is so common. And that's where guys are coming from. Guys don't eat breakfast because it's not because they don't want to or they hate breakfast foods. It's because a lot of them didn't eat until nighttime and their body's just kind of used to that. And so soft education about like, hey, let's try a little breakfast. Let's try a little lunch. Let's make sure your hydration is on point. What are you doing after practice to cool your body down and feel hungry and ready for a recovery meal after practice? What is your sleep like? What's your sleep hygiene like? Are you up playing the game all night and eating chips because you're distracted? What are all these variables? Again, get to know them. Always take steps into getting to know them more and more before you jump down and make that plan stick. And we're in a performance driven. Our job is performance driven, and so it's hard sometimes to sit there and go like, shoot, coach, I got to be patient with this guy. I'm sorry about that, but like we got to be a little patient here. Sometimes it's really, really hard because, coaches are looking to you to help that guy lose that 10 to 20 pounds. That probably would be good for him. And so it's hard to have that patience sometimes. But again, building a relationship, especially at the high school level, building that relationship, building a program where you're encouraging that athlete to still succeed and have some confidence on the field. Put him in sprints with guys that are similar size, have him do sprints with the D-line if he's a bigger D-lineman, or all the linemen like run together, that kind of thing, somewhere where he can still thrive and succeed and not be discouraged every day at practice. Because ultimately this is a variable in his performance and he might be the smartest kid in the world when it comes to, picking up and holding on to double teams or whatever that is. But developing some of those soft skills first with the athlete and making him feel comfortable with the coach, which this might be the head coach of a varsity football team at the high school level that, you can be his main go-to, and you're going to be shaking hands with his parents, and you don't want the kid to feel discouraged along the way and ultimately lose a kid. And if you shake hands with the kid's parents and they're big too, it's going to be that much harder to, all of a sudden get him on a major weight loss program. I'm not saying that the eye test isn't real, because the eye test sometimes is real. he ain't fitting into the 2XL or 3XL, and it's hard on a body image of a kid. So let's be aware of those variables, but then encourage that kid's performance together in a way that's constructive,
Good. Great job, because that's always been a tough one, especially when the stakes are so high. And you are correct. I think people who overeat are no different than people who do other things that aren't good for them as well. I think it's a dopamine problem for many. And then others, it could be just a lack of discipline. But I think a lot of times big kids eat a lot at night by themselves, or when they get an opportunity, because eating a lot of food sometimes makes us feel good. I know it does me. So now we're going to run a gauntlet here. Okay. I've got some nitty gritty stuff here I want to go over. Some of the things that you encounter on a daily basis that will give our listeners some actionable plans for success, again, on the daily basis. So we'll go for the short answers here, but make sure you don't leave anything out, because this is the stuff that helps us on a day-to-day basis. So the first thing I want to talk about is fueling for practice. Let's say your players or your athletes, for that matter, any athlete, eats lunch at 11 o'clock in the morning, practices until 3. What are some things that can be packed in a backpack or put out in the meeting rooms or even out on the practice floor that can hold these athletes over until dinner?
Yeah. Great question. I think 4 hours before practice is a great time to be reaching for like your last big meal before that practice. I think 11 o'clock is perfect for that. So timing first is there. But a lot of times for football athletes specifically, we're larger athletes putting out a lot of energy. So you're hitting the nail on the head on, we should be kind of looking for something else to hold us over through that 1, 2, 3 hour practice, right? That's going to be at 3 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that meal can be composed of something that's easy to digest. Some white rice and teriyaki chicken, great. Easy to digest. You got some protein, throw some veggies in there, throw some spinach or whatever. That's a great meal. And it's going to be digested really easy in a half an hour to an hour. For most guys, I'd expect you to be able to go throw some squats around or something after eating like a rice bowl, when compared to McDonald's or something fried or something heavy where, that oil, those fats, those saturated fats are going to sit just like oil sits on water. It's going to sit in your stomach for a bit longer and kind of ride on top of that stomach, making you feel fuller, bloated, making it harder to breathe, it's going to keep your heart rate higher, kind of all those variables. It's going to be harder on your body. So I like the composition of something that's, healthy minded, but easily digested, that fills you up without gorging yourself. And then 2 hours, 1 hour, or right before practice, again, something that's easily digested, fruit, some berries, apples, oranges are all great options. And those are kind of typical things you'll see at the high school level, easy to grab, like Coach Donald, you said, used to do at LSU, easy to grab from the dining hall or easy to grab from the grocery store, bring it there, set it out. The guys can peel the oranges on themselves, a banana. Those things are great. A little preparation goes a long way when it talks about like cutting costs and stuff. So if you're blessed enough to have somebody to, put some peanut butter and jelly on a sandwich, fantastic. Guys will usually tear that up. And although peanut butter is a fatty source, I think most guys are going to be just fine with some peanut butter in their system. And that's some great calories, first and foremost. The bars and stuff are great. But I think for bang for the buck, I am always looking for ways to kind of capture, a little food service aspect to make them enjoy it a little bit more, I think. But honestly, when we're talking about the high school level, anything that we can get in front of them, a lot of times, great juices, any of that stuff can be great for that pre-practice, and just calories in general that they'll consume and you're not wasting your time on.
Okay. All right. What's better for post-workout recovery, a meal or some type of protein shake or smoothie?
Oh yeah. It depends. Where are we ending that day on? Post workout, is that where are we at? So,
all right. So let's say it's 10 o'clock in the morning and I'm probably not going to eat for a couple of hours. And let's say I finish my workout at 10, but it's close enough to lunch that I could hold over if I wanted to. I want to get something in my body quickly to recover, or it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I finished my workout. There's no practice. All I did was lift and it's not quite dinner time yet. So would it be something I'd go on and eat a meal, or something I would just take a smoothie or a protein shake?
My mind goes to protein shake first. Because just the convenience factor. I want to keep you hungry enough to where you still want to eat lunch.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose like the satiety opportunity there for you to pack in 1,200, 1,500 calories at that lunch meal that we still have the opportunity to have.
Right.
I still want you to, of course, get that protein in.
Okay.
It's hard to get enough protein in throughout the day. It's a challenge for a lot of athletes.
Yeah.
And so capture that feed. If it's in between meals like that, absolutely. And the other thing that does in my mind is if we can blend a shake with some ice, something cold for the body, something with some liquids that goes through the body quickly, that'll cool the body down a bit, right? And that'll start the recovery process a little bit faster. Pull some of that blood flow that ran out into the arms, ran out into the legs to perform the squats, perform the runs, and start pulling that blood back into the stomach area, back into the GI area, and back into that rest and digest mode, right? I think a smoothie does a great job at that. In our locker room during fall camp, we keep a slushy machine going just because.
Oh, wow.
I want to keep them cooling down at that point, right? But then it's right at lunchtime, so I do want you to go capture those lunch calories, and then we'll throw some shakes in later in the day for more recovery things. So it depends on where you're at, what you want, and what you can stick to. Right. But ultimately, I think a shake is great, or something post workout. But if you don't like smoothies, I don't care if you eat a fourth rice bowl during the day, or a fourth meal. If you have
right, especially if you're having to put on weight. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, good deal. So one of the most common questions that I got from high school coaches, and I'm sure that you get from high school coaches, is about their pregame meals. Can you give us a breakdown of the type of foods that you would recommend, the amount of calories, and the timing of that meal?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to be as consistent as possible with training. So if we can, if we're eating forward 3 to 4 hours before training, that's where I go for the meal or pregame meal also. So if kickoff's at 7, let's get them in the dining room at 3:30 and have them eating 3 to 4 hours before. The consistency of those meals are going to be, again, easily digested foods. We're going to get away from the fried, any kind of fried food at that point, any kind of fattier meats as well at that point. And we're going to go towards a sirloin instead of a ribeye. We're going to go towards a chicken thigh or chicken breast instead of a chicken wing. You know what I mean? And we're going to, and from a carbohydrate standpoint, we're going to go towards a white rice, roasted potato wedges, something like that that can be easily digested over a fried hash brown or something that guys might be grabbing kind of out of convenience. And then keeping fruit available, keeping like things like cereal available is great. I think those are super easy digestible foods. Calorie wise, I treat it just as a meal, no different than any other day. If you've eaten breakfast and you've eaten lunch, well, shoot, we should, for most guys, we should still be aiming at 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 calories at that meal to tolerance. You're still going to have the guys that all I can stomach, coach, is a couple peanut butter and jellies right now. All right, that's where we're at, but I'm going to be intentional with you leading up to the game on hydration, on getting some extra carbs in, that kind of stuff. So I'm not as finicky about how much to eat at that time. That's dictated athlete to athlete, but composition is very important. And I don't want you to feel sluggish going into that meal or that game. And not to sound gross, but we talk about this a lot, I also want you to be able to use the bathroom before that game.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. No, you're right. When I played, we had a choice, and it didn't matter what time of the day we played. We had a choice. And it was either going to be spaghetti with not a meat sauce, but maybe a light meat sauce. I don't really remember that. And then pancakes. And so a good friend of mine and roommate, and we've coached together on 2 occasions. He didn't eat before the game, and me, I was a ravenous eater because I had to eat in order to keep my weight on, and he didn't like eating. So he would order spaghetti and I would order the pancakes, and I would eat my pancakes. And when he was done, I would eat his spaghetti, and then I would be starving by the time the game came around, and he wouldn't eat anything.
Coach,
but everybody's different,
I was the same way. I would go down the street. We would watch film about 4 hours before the game, and this is in high school. And I would go down the street and get island barbecue. I'd get like fried chicken katsu, fried shrimp, 3 scoops of like white rice and macaroni salad, and I would throw down.
Yeah.
I never knew why I always kind of felt lethargic before games. I thought I was just always nervous.
Yeah. I was a ravenous eater. And I've maintained, a pretty average build, but man, I can put away the calories, but I'm active too, all right. So here's my next question is regarding hydration. And when does it begin? Okay. And some of this is rhetorical, but I'm asking the question so that everyone hears, because you mentioned how much protein that you got to have in order, to be an elite level athlete, but you got to, water is the same, and they're at the opposite ends of the spectrum when you talk about nutrition. But first of all, when does it begin? And is it something that you begin focusing on early in the week, the night before competition? Should things be available on the bus, going to the game? And then what's available in the locker room? So let's just, cover hydration and how important it is, and how does that strategy look throughout the week?
You're trying to get me to nerd out now.
Yeah.
It's not on the opposite side of the spectrum, actually. Hydration and protein intake are hand in hand. As an athlete or anybody, right? Protein gets broken down by hydrolysis in the body, which means water is basically cutting protein and making it available to your bloodstream, to your muscles constantly.
Knowledge bomb. Knowledge bomb. Say that again.
If you're dehydrated constantly, or if you're allowing your body to get dehydrated, you're not intentional Monday morning, and then you drink a bunch of water before practice on Monday, and then you let yourself get dehydrated Tuesday morning. Tuesday practice, you go into practice a little dehydrated, but oh shoot, okay, let me get it back up on Wednesday. I got my gallon jug. And then Thursday, well, I was hydrated yesterday, like shoot. And then Friday comes around, I'm like, all right, now it's time to get hydrated.
Yeah.
you're not going to absorb as much as you can from your diet throughout the week. You're cutting yourself at the knees a little bit.
Yeah.
It's interesting how this all plays together, but being chronically hydrated constantly, very intentional about, 10 glasses of water every day is so important. Just from a level of how are you going to feel on a day-to-day basis? I want the athlete to feel the same as best as we can, the same for that hard Tuesday practice as he will on that Friday or Saturday game. As much as we can control that as possible. And what that looks like is being intentional with our diet and our exercise routine as best we can to make ourselves feel as much the same as possible. Right. And so hydration is so much more a chronic issue or like something to strategize around than it is acutely. You'll see a lot of, coaches recommend or people recommend. And the closer you get to game time, the more intentional they are about having Gatorade around or having water around or having some of those things around for the athlete to drink. But really, when we're recovering the day after the game, it's just as important to get inflammation down from the bruising and stuff the day after a game with water intake. So ultimately, also the last thing I'll touch is being chronically hydrated and allowing your bloodstream to have a little more blood due to having a little more water in the body is important, because now if your muscle cells sit like this and they're kind of saggy, the more chronically hydrated you are, the more your muscle cells going to balloon up just a little bit more. And it's going to feel comfortable to pull a little more water out of your bloodstream into your muscles, and ultimately building healthier muscle cells and stronger muscle cells and injury-free muscle cells and muscle cells that bounce back faster. And so chronic hydration is the only way to look at it in my eyes. Now, of course, there's the other side of it. You want to check in on guys and make sure, hey, we're leading up to the game. Here we want you to be, of course, let's make sure that you're hydrated. So don't stop communicating about those things, but way more of a chronic issue. I literally end everything I say around the building with stay hydrated. Like my little catchphrase around the building is stay hydrated, stay hydrated. Yeah. Because just find a routine with it. Find something. I literally just do like 4 16-ounce glasses of water in the morning and at least 4 at night. And then I don't track, what I'm drinking during workouts and stuff, because I do that to thirst. But just finding something that works. Some guys, they have to have their gallon jug to know that they got a gallon in during the day. Right. And that's really where I start with it is get a gallon of clean water down every day. And then also be intentional with salting your foods around heavy workload days where you're going to sweat a lot. Get some salt on your food. Have Gatorade available during practices because they have a little bit of electrolytes. And then if you have the resources available to get higher electrolyte things, Gatorade's a little soft on the electrolytes. But they have some formulas that have more sodium, more potassium, more calcium, more chloride, that kind of stuff. A Gator Light is one of their products, but there's a ton of products out there on the market. Having some higher electrolyte beverages in your routine, maybe first thing in the morning, that wakes you up, helps your equilibrium, helps you get some water into your system first thing in the morning because it tastes good, to be honest. It helps the water stick a little bit more. Maybe that's what works for you, maybe right before practice. But having some of that going into your body on the days at least that you're going to sweat a lot is very important as well.
Great job, because, especially, here in the South where it's hotter, guys, I think have a higher demand in some places, when it's warm, you're going to sweat a little more than when it's not. And so I think that's important to mention. And I appreciate the level that you covered that was huge. All right. Next one. What about halftime feedings? Are you feeding the guys at halftime or offering the snacks to them when they come in from the first half?
I live in halftime.
Yeah.
Halftime is my go time. And Eric Donovan and his staff are like, we all do this together. We deploy at halftime with a litany of snacks available. And I think at every single level, it's very important. At the Raiders too, I learned the importance of this. Circle the locker room with snacks in your hand. Find the things that the guys like and enjoy and will eat. The quarterback is always going to have a Rice Krispie and a Gatorade, a yellow Gatorade. He always wants like the specific things.
Right.
Find your key guys that you need eating. We went as far at the Raiders. Ricky went as far at the Raiders for us we pre-designed every locker with their snacks that they enjoy.
Oh, wow. So that's going the extra mile right there.
If the guy liked Cheez-Its and at the professional level, guys will eat Cheez-Its. Cheez-Its and a Gatorade and a protein shake. Well, that's what's going to be in your locker.
Yeah.
Cooled down, ready to go. We'd set that up about 5 minutes left in the first half. And they come in, and what that does, and what I saw such an importance with, is if you're lucky enough to have a snack table in the locker room, they all don't come swarm you and crowd around that snack table and fight over resources. Right. And that's a distraction for 2, 3, 4 minutes of halftime where you want them to go sit down, cool down, go sit down. And so
and start making adjustments.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Exactly. And so that's their minute. You and I know this from a football aspect. That's their minute away from the coaches and away from the position group. They have like 4 or 5 minutes where the coaches are in the locker room, like strategizing together before they come and start talking to the guys again. And so it's a sacred moment.
Yeah.
It's really
I know.
It's scary.
and they're deep in the thought and they're sitting there staring at the floor, shoving a Rice Krispie down their throat. But it's a moment where they get, of quiet time in their head to, contemplate what's coming and what just happened and while stuffing something down their throat. And I've seen it a million times.
I'm still huge at that moment on how do we still give them a homey touch? How do we still go the extra mile on prepping something? And this is what I got from Nicole Kiley, who we would slice Hawaiian rolls and make shredded like barbecue chicken sliders.
Oh wow!
Halftime there, and I'll never not do that because that, Sweet Baby Ray's, everybody loves Sweet Baby Ray's, barbecue sauce, shredded chicken breast, and Hawaiian rolls. And it's so easy. It's per slider. It's going to be, 30 carbs, a little bit of protein. Perfect. That's all I could ever ask for. And so the big guys, plenty of sliders, they can take down 2 or 3. Some of the smaller guys, at least if they're getting 1, and then slushies at hot games. Like I said, we have a slushie cart where we'll do pre-built.
That's amazing.
In their locker. That is the time to go the extra mile and go kick some butt in the third.
Yeah, that's amazing. Great idea, man. Give them something that they're going to eat. They can't sit there and eat 12 of them. But give them something that they're going to eat that has the right caloric content, that's not going to be overbearing on the system, and fuel them for that second half. And it makes a difference in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Now, would a post-game meal resemble a post-workout meal or something more substantial? How's that look?
In a perfect world, if I'm working individually, let's say I'm a private dietitian and I got my one athlete that I'm working with, in a perfect world, I am recommending, hey man, this is the opportunity to exercise perfect nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
It's something with plenty of antioxidants. You know, you hear that word thrown around.
Right. Yeah.
Decreasing inflammation, plenty of minerals and vitamins that you might have lost during the game. Looking at it from ground up, you know, a perfect meal that they're going to enjoy and love, maybe their favorite thing to eat that is healthy. If we can get them to eat salmon, that's great. Is that the real world, though?
Yeah. Especially in the college football world when you don't even know, you know, the city. And I can imagine what it's like for you guys when you travel with all the different places that you have to go. It's tough. It really is.
And it's still my favorite thing that Coach Donovan says is it's a people business.
Yeah.
And this is we are catering to these guys' needs. And again, you gotta go from here to here first and go, what are the guys actually going to eat? What are the calories that they're going to actually eat? And so what I'm looking for is something creative, something interesting that they'll enjoy, something that if they lose the game or if we lose the game, they're going to come out and go, oh, dang, we got this, and still enjoy the food and
right.
almost as like a morale boost. Like
I
want them to have something new. And that's the way I kind of look at that meal. And if it is ribs, I don't care. If it's chicken wings, I don't care. I'm looking at calories and protein from a food service standpoint at that time, something that'll hold well and they'll enjoy and get those calories down. And if you're at the high school level and you are blessed enough to have, you know, a team mom or a group of team moms that are around to flip some burgers. We used to play this school. This will be my third Hawaiian barbecue shout out, if you can't tell what my favorite cuisine is. But we used to play against the school here in town in Las Vegas that the third quarter would roll around and they'd fire up the grills outside the stadium and they'd be cooking off there. They were like the kind of Hawaiian school. A lot of Hawaiians went there. And they would be cooking off, you know, Calbee short ribs and chicken katsu right outside the stadium. And you'd be mid-third quarter and like, dang, that smells good. If you're lucky enough to have the support and resources around to flip some burgers or something like that, I think that's perfect. Your needs are so high after those games. You're hungry. You need something in your system to stop that catabolic effect of breaking down muscle. And let's get these boys fed as fast as possible. I think looking to that, throwing that maybe into at the high school level, into the team fees or something, and finding some parents that would love to be a part of that process of getting some food for the guys right after the game when they leave the locker room. I think that's maybe the biggest thing that you can do for a team, pre and post game meals. That's a huge hole right now in high school sports that I think is going to start to grow. And I'm not looking for anything too specific. The probably easiest thing that could be done is a bunch of Instant Pots and do, you know, steamed white rice and a good teriyaki chicken bowl or orange chicken bowl, something like that. That might be easy. Sandwiches, but or like I said, like flipping burgers or something. But it's huge, and that composition of the meal is really, let's get calories in the guys and satisfy them and get them with some morale boost. You know what I mean? Good.
All right. Now we're going to move on to some hot topics here. Okay. And it's supplements. And, you know, there's so many. You know, you mentioned you worked at GNC. When I first got out of college, I worked at GNC. And there's so many different brands, so many different products that are available today, just like there was then, especially with the internet. There's more. But there's some things that really work that are beneficial and safe when used accordingly. So the first one, and probably the most researched nutritional supplement that there has ever been, and it works, and it's very popular. And I'm just going to say, there's a lot of different types of creatine, but let's for for time's sake, let's just talk about creatine monohydrate. What is your take on creatine monohydrate, and is it something that, or just tell me? I don't even want to preface your answers. Just let's talk about creatine monohydrate.
Necessary. It is absolutely necessary. It is a part of, to try to break it down simply, it is a part of immediate energy in your body. Your body has several different energy systems in your body for instant energy, like literally being able to grab something, literally being able to like take off in a sprint.
Yeah.
There's like a moderate system energy where you can run for a minute, all out as far and hard as you can. And then there's the energy system that takes over after that, where I can jog for ever.
Yeah.
I can jog a marathon. I can go for a long time before that system fails, right? Creatine is that instant burst energy, and football is an instant burst sport. Also, football is not a contact sport, it is a collision sport. And so I'll break it down two ways. Creatine, first and foremost, gives the body a little bit more instant energy to tap into. You have natural creatine in your body at all times circulating. You have like 1 to 2 grams at all times in your body, held in the muscle cells, ready to sprint. And you also have some that works the neurons and electricity in your brain at all times. For me to be spewing out all this information to you, I'm using a little bit of creatine in my brain. The research is getting there on a neuroprotective mechanism of creatine. It's shown in animal studies, and it's being worked on in human studies on the protection of the brain. And we can be men and talk about the real world concern of concussions and CTE. It is real. And it is a real thing that we are going to protect our athletes from. The greatest external wear that we can create with helmets, and then internally, what we can take is, we might talk about this, a fish oil would be great for that. Mm-hmm. And also a creatine monohydrate, 5 grams a day, may have some real cognitive benefits. It's shown that people perform better on tests and studies, and they speak better when they're taking creatine. It's a magnificent supplement that is tapping into what your body already has. It's not trying to take your body in a different direction than what's naturally happening, like a stimulant, like a caffeine, like a pre-workout supplement. What it really is it's a performance enhancing supplement in the way of burst energy. I can get a little faster, a little stronger, and maintain that for a little bit longer. And then also I can possibly protect my brain a little bit more when I'm taking creatine for a long period of time. I always preface this by saying, take something that's third-party tested. Yeah. Take something that is tested by NSF for sport or Informed Choice for sport. Those are the two that I really trust at the NCAA level. And don't feel like you got to take a ton of it. 1 scoop a day, as consistent as possible, is great. And as long as you're a football athlete, I think you should be taking creatine to supplement a very good hydration strategy. Don't let your body go dehydrated while you're taking creatine, because in the same way, like I said, water breaks down protein in our body. Well, water is utilized by that creatine as well. And you don't want creatine pulling water out of your body. You want to be fully hydrated constantly when you're taking creatine. So again, a chronic hydration thing there.
Yeah. And you alluded to this about all of the mixtures, pre-workouts, et cetera. You only need creatine monohydrate in its powdered form, and it doesn't need to be flavored. It doesn't need to have all these other ingredients. It's just, and it's cheap, but it's just simple creatine monohydrate, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'll also say, like, if you can't afford a supplement, at the high school level, some kids are just not going to be able to afford it. Beef, pork, chicken, they come with some creatine in it. Again, this supplementing the diet means that you can get 100% of your nutrition from diet. Now, it has to be extremely tapped in, and probably you need a private chef for that. But to supplement that diet, creatine monohydrate is huge. And again, but it's from natural sources. You get it from eggs, pork, chicken, turkey, and the best form of it is, or the most you get from beef and steak. So adding some of that in your diet, but then if you're blessed enough to afford the supplement, it's huge.
All right. Now you mentioned fish oils and how important that is for the brain also, so post-concussive therapy, and then as a prophylactic, just because you're out there, with a helmet on, hitting another guy. Yeah. So talk about fish oils and their importance.
Yeah. Fish oil is sometimes nasty to take. Yeah. But again, if there's two that I think is absolutely necessary as a football athlete, as long as you're playing football, our goal as performance staff, coaching staff, our goal should always be, and is always in our program, I want you to play as long as you can. As long as your body allows you to play and be successful, I am all in to help out as much as I can. And then my goal is also to make sure that you pop out on the other side a husband, a father, and a businessman, a career man, an intelligent man that isn't hindered by headaches and fatigue and some of those things that repetitive subconcussive impacts can have on individuals. Protecting your brain internally by taking fish oil is of utmost importance. What it is basically you take any kind of like wire, right? The wire runs through electricity, or runs electricity from one point to another. And the wire is protected by this rubber, right? The inside, you have that metal frame. And basically in your brain, you have a billion little wires that run electricity throughout the brain. And if you're not protecting the body by having a beneficial diet, an anti-inflammatory diet with high DHA, EPA, which are the molecules you get from fish oil, those wirings can get rattled a little bit easier. What DHA really is it's that protective rubber on the wire so that when it shakes and it gets rattled and maybe bent a little bit, it's not breaking. Take it consistently. Take, I'd say, at least 2 grams a day of total fish oil, and you're looking for 1 gram of DHA from a supplement that you're getting. At least 1 gram a day during contact periods. So I'd say take that during season, take that during fall camp, take that during spring ball when you're wearing helmets. And then if you want to take that the rest of the year because it does add some anti-inflammatory effects, I'm all for it. But I'd say be intentional about communicating to your guys, to your team about fish oils during that contact period. Maybe you have a recommendation that you throw out to the parents and to the team. Maybe you can call the local GNC and get a discount for your team or something like that.
Yeah.
But the importance is there, and we're not going to stop playing football because we love this game. But we're going to continue enhancing our ability to protect our young men, and that's that's a huge component of where this, what this discipline should be doing is pushing those fish oils.
Well, I appreciate it, Brad. You've been phenomenal, but unfortunately our time is up. And you've been so thorough. And just like Eric told me, you were going to do a great job. So I want to thank you for joining us today. And I really appreciate your time. It's been phenomenal. You can follow Brad on Twitter at Fueling Tank. I like that one. Now, is Tank your old nickname?
No, I just
okay. All right. So again, you can follow him on Twitter at Fueling Tank, and that is capital F, capital T, and on Instagram at fueling.tank, and that would be a capital F and a dot and a capital T for tank. This brings us to the end of today's podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're someone interested in doing a podcast with us, or if there is someone that you would like to recommend, like Brad today, please email us at podcast@themoffittmethod.fit. Although many of our guests are going to be collegiate football strength and conditioning coaches, it's my goal to have a mixture of strength coaches on here. I just so happen to know a bunch of collegiate football strength coaches and high school strength coaches. So please, if there is someone that you would like to recommend, or if, again, you would like to be a guest on our show, do not hesitate to email us at podcast@themoffittmethod.fit. I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I did. If so, please subscribe and leave us a review. That's important. So please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. For more information about the Moffitt Method program and everything that we have to offer you, whether you're a high school, a private facility, an individual, a sport organization, please visit us on Instagram at The Moffitt Method, on Twitter at Moffitt Method, and then go to our website, themoffittmethod.fit. Again, themoffittmethod.fit. Check out our other episodes. We've had some great guests on here so far. So you can find us on iTunes. We're on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. You can go to themoffittmethod.fit and view our videos as well. So thank you again for joining in. Please give us a follow. Please give us a review and have a great day. Thank you.